Yeah.
Okay. Right. So finally we made it after we are three. Because last time I screwed up on the time, which I felt terrible about. But it was very nice. The other two, Judy and Caroline, were very kind to me. So
Way
this
to
is
go.
this is our podcast on how to destroy English language teaching as we know it. But we might not succeed, so there could be some failure along the way. But today we've got Caroline, who is Caroline Swinton, who teaches English, well, guides English language acquisition in Italy, who's worked with English out there materials for a number of years, and is a good friend of mine now.
Oh, that's
And Judy Thompson, who is the founder of Thompson Language Academy in Ontario and is a well-known traverser of the online messaging channels in terms of exploding the iniquities and inadequacies of mainstream education, especially English language teaching and learning. And Judy's been an online friend of mine for quite some time. She was very, very supportive, and I appreciate it hugely when I had a rather large run-in with Oxford University Press. And so Judy's here because she's one of us.
My tribe. My team.
We all have severe and profound doubts about the efficacy of the practice of millions, if not billions, of people on the planet trying to learn to speak English. So there you go. And so you probably, if you're listening to this, I think there's about 70 people who listen regularly, which is kind of an achievement in itself. You know, we don't know who they are. Podomatic says that so many people listen and so many download. I'll share the stats with you both. I shared them with Caroline a couple of weeks ago, and I'll share them with you, Judy. But welcome, and just say a few things about yourself would be handy. So,
Well, that
Judy,
was a really nice lead-in because in Canada we all learn French in school. We learn about French in school, but when we graduate, nobody actually speaks it, and nobody really cares. Like that was the point: was talk to the students about French. There was no intention behind it. As with a lot of education. So when I became an English as a second language teacher, and I got a plum job with the Board of Education, benefits and pension, like the whole works, it's the job. And I couldn't help noticing the students never spoke English, and it didn't matter how long they were in learn about English class. And this wasn't fine with me because I was teaching adults, and they needed to learn to speak English to survive and thrive in a new culture. So I figured out a way to help them, and it went boom. It just went all over the world. English is crazy, and it went to like 60 countries. And there's a lot of, why didn't somebody just tell me this? Why didn't somebody tell me this? And you're going, well, it's a bad business model. We can't keep you there for years and years and years if you're successful in weeks. And I think, Jason, you and I, bonded because when I saw your stuff, I could see how that works. I support you 100%. Go, that totally works. It's not what I do, but it's the same principle.
It's based on the same principles of how the brain works and acquires information and uses it. That's it. To me, it's kind of simple.
Unlearning. That's a big. They have to let go a lot of the junk that they learned at school. This is a big problem for teachers. Is unlearning. So unlearning was an unword even 10 years ago, but now it's a super common word. You have to let go of that stuff that doesn't work, which is hard.
Have you ever read Deschooling Society?
No, but I will. I was writing down the title.
Ivan Illich, who was a sort of psychologist, philosopher, priest, but he was a fascinating guy who, in the sort of 50s, 60s, maybe 60s, 70s, he wrote some great stuff. And Deschooling Society is a great book, which basically he kind of expounds on. It's not very long, but it's quite dense. He expounds on how the education system. This is years ago, how the education system has failed people. And reading, if you read Ivan Illich's stuff and people like Eric Fromm and Paulo Freire, like these groups like that, they were all writing years ago about the same problems we have today. And nothing's changed in the interim. We've just added a few fancy bits of technology, but nothing in practical terms in the way that, you know, ELT or mainstream ELT or education has changed the way it interacts with people's brains.
Yeah, you can go back to 1885 and Ebbinghaus and the forgetting curve, and he documented how quickly after the test we forget everything. We've forgotten almost 100% of what we learned in school. Almost 100%, and most of it almost immediately. And it doesn't seem to matter to school how ineffective it is.
No, I know. I mean,
but you know what? That is an unfair comment. There's a lot of people that really care, and the movement is getting bigger and bigger, and stronger and stronger. And the
do you think it is?
Traditional education can't survive the internet. It can't survive the transparency. So not only are we seeing the statistics of the failure, but we're seeing solutions as well, and people who have been really successful. I can tell you some if you want to know. And
I was much more hopeful 10, 15 years ago. You know, I've kind of reached the point of going, oh God, I can't keep headbutting this.
Stay the course, buddy. Stay the course.
It's soul destroying. I find it soul destroying, don't you?
Yes, till I get a call from somebody like you, or I meet somebody like Caroline, and think, yes, we're out there. I want to say Grant Lichman, Lichtman, Grant Lichman wrote Thrive, but he's transformed. He works at the school and board level.
Right.
He's in the States, but he's also done work in Canada, and he's transformed hundreds of schools and boards. He's amazing. And Anne Lautrette, she's British.
How does he do it?
Works in Indonesia. It's all in the title. It's the co-constructed classroom. So,
right,
you know, it's a jammy thing now to say we got all the stakeholders together, but they mean the teachers, the administration, and the parents. But Grant Lichman gets the students. You're the biggest stakeholders of all.
No,
How
exactly.
are you left out of the
Exactly. That has been universally forgotten since time began.
and Anne Lautrette transforms classroom, so you can transform your own classroom. But you are.
How does he do it? Does he do it like Sugata Mitra with self-organized learning?
It's amazing. It's right in our face. So it's not that there isn't a solution. It's facilitating, really.
Yeah.
He gets them all together in a gymnasium or something, and he puts them in little groups and asks them to write out on the pages, what would an ideal school look like to you?
Right.
They're all in small groups.
Oh my God.
4 or 5 in a group, and they fill it all in. Of course, they all say mostly the same thing.
Exactly.
And then he said, how are we going to get there?
Right.
Like he just gives it over to them. So when they generate it, they adopt it.
Yeah, but what then? You see, I can totally get that process. I can totally understand how it would theoretically empower the minions, right? And I've almost tried it myself in my kids' primary school, right? But I was a governor. I was chair of governors because no one else would do it. I turned the whole governing of the school in 2014 like paperless using Google Plus. I mean, but it nearly drove some of them mad. But you know, it was interesting to watch. But what I found happens was that if you introduce ideas like that empower the kids, when the kids struggle to organize, because they've been conditioned to just sit and receive. Because then the teachers kind of go, oh, it doesn't work. I took Mitra's self-organized learning thing, about that, and basically you give it was a class of 9-year-olds, 9 and 10-year-olds, and I had the head teacher there, and I said, let me try this, and you ask them a big question: why is the sky blue? And then you say to them, right, we've got this many laptops, organize yourselves in little groups, you can work with anyone you want to, and then find out what the answer is. You have someone doing the keyboard, another one writing it down, blah, blah, blah. Build a little presentation, and 25, 30 minutes later, then you come up and tell the class what you come up with, right? And that's what Mitra did with his self-organized learning environment, which is great, But I sat in this room, and then we did that. I mean, first of all, I thought the head teacher was going to do it, and he said he'd run it, and then he backed out without telling me, and I took over because he obviously was struggling to compute. And then I realized that I was slightly presumptive because I didn't realize that all the kids were going to struggle so much to self-organize.
I was going to say
they couldn't do it.
Adults can't self-organize. It's a ridiculous request, but the idea is right. So you're talking about autonomy and accountability.
Yeah.
So you're making them accountable.
Yeah.
That's facilitated learning. Listening first, collaboration.
Yeah, and they find it so hard.
Organize. No.
No, but just taking roles, working amongst themselves, and the theory is like the interesting thing is that if you don't like the group you're in, you can just bugger off to another one.
Go to any group you want. None of them have the skills. The teacher doesn't have the skills. The principal doesn't have the skills. You're expecting children to generate skills they've never even witnessed.
Yeah,
it's a ridiculous request.
But it works if you give them time. If you give them time and you give them a bit of guidance,
you can do it more expediently.
Then they kind of, I think it's the fear of autonomy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of built in, like, oh, I'm allowed to do this, and then you get lots of questions. Can I do this? Yes. Can I do that? Yes. Can I do? You can do anything you want, and it's like, wow, I can do. Hey, what?
It's too much freedom. They don't need to be wild. They need to be directed, and it's a different.
Yeah, exactly. But what happened?
Skill or a facility, an educator's skill. I keep moving away from the teacher word.
What happens with the guy in Canada you mentioned, when he got all the kids in a gymnasium and they all had, naturally they would all come up with the same solution, and then the solution isn't the solution that's presented by the principal and the
principal's board. There. The principal's there, the administration's there, the teachers are there, the parents are there, and the students are there. That's what.
And they all go, okay, we're going to change everything.
No, they said, what's your wish? What's your end goal? What would that look like?
Right.
And they wrote that, and then how can we get there? And then they came up with ideas then. Anyways, yeah, he included students as stakeholders. He wasn't throwing it out to students.
Yeah, but does it get adopted?
Yes, hundreds and hundreds of schools. They're
really?
going, this is what we needed to hear. Like they have,
wow.
You can't expect them to generate it from nothing. So he guides them.
Wow.
And the book is Thrive. THRIVE, Thrive. I have a copy here. I could read that. It's schools in the 21st century or something like that.
Right. Okay.
On the cover. It's good.
Well, that's amazing if that's happening.
Yeah, it is.
Because it's like we're going backwards here.
People want to, and we don't need everybody. We need a tipping point. And young teachers in particular, they either leave in the first 5 years. The number of teachers who leave in 5 years is staggering.
Yeah, and here.
Or retire early. but yeah, it's those young teachers or the like we're not young, but we're progressive. They're not all young. Some are just progressive and have been looking for answers for a long time.
I don't think Caroline would describe herself as young. I don't think that's a cruel that's not a cruel comment. I don't think. I think she'll forgive me as well. So because I was thinking, how are we going to get Caroline into this conversation? And
Don't worry.
Jump in, Caroline.
Judy went to that about teachers being progressive, and then I looked at Caroline and thought, yeah, well, Caroline's been progressive because Caroline came at English language teaching from the point of view of she's a translator and interpreter, and you didn't like what you were asked to do. You did a CELTA, didn't you, and stuff like that?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And you just thought it's wrong. It doesn't work.
Yes, I just started teaching at the very beginning by helping school kids pass the various tests and levels and years at school, and I found it quite useless, but it was what they asked for, and then I started helping adults as I could with the materials that were available at the time. And fortunately, I decided to branch out and I looked for a way to teach online. And that's where everything changed. And when I met you and was able to start using English out there and see teaching and facilitating from a completely different point of view. And so I mean, I'm happy to listen because everything you're saying for me is new. I'm still learning a lot. So I don't know. Yeah, but I don't know all these names of the various people who have had these experiences and experiments in different places in different ways. I know it's becoming more and more popular. I can see that. There are more like Judy was saying just now. It's a kind of a tipping point that I'm beginning to notice, and I really hope you hang in there, Jason, because I think something wonderful is going to be happening sooner or later.
Really?
Yes.
I'm kind of so over most of this stuff. It's like I've crashed my head, and it's like it's like something that irritates me now.
Okay, I'm going to make you feel better.
Okay, come on.
I have a good social media following, and I'm regularly asked by developers to vet, mostly to approve it's new and it's different. Right. And I can count on one hand, and one of them was you. I am the Simon Cowell of English teaching talent. I don't have to listen to them very long, and I go, no, you took garbage and you digitized it. You took garbage and you gamified it. You never fixed the garbage. Is the biggest problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And a huge problem because
Rita Baker, there's a handful who didn't do that, who actually, and they're super progressive and super.
But that's the thing.
I'm sure I mentioned that. She's the richest ESL person I know, and she should be, because she boiled.
But I've got a theory about that. I've got a theory. I don't begrudge Rita her wealth and her success. But the Library English Centre is British Council accredited, isn't it?
Well, yeah, that's a little. You got to do some of this. I have my TESOL certificate.
No, I know.
I have a degree.
But the thing
have to get those credentials to get in there.
Yeah.
And say this is. I have to be certified, or I have no.
No, I know. And I kind of like. My first school, which was Leicester Square School of English, which was like near Leicester Square, was British Council accredited and taught like everyone else. And the only reason the main reason it was successful is because it was, and I've talked about this before, it was kind of funky. I was in my 20s and we all were running it. And we had a really different attitude to social program. It was very subversive, underground, and we had a lot of fun. But I realized that people weren't improving in terms of their speaking skills. and I thought it was rubbish. And then when I fell out with my business partner, which has happened a few times, there's reasons for that. I started this new school, English Out There, which was based on, well, that doesn't work. Let's try and work out what does
Yeah.
work, right?
Yeah.
And a couple of years in, as it was coming up and it was like getting noticed, I mean, I knew from marketing my first school, because when it became accredited, I just went around the world to all the British Council offices. My brochure was in every British Council library in every city, so like hundreds of them. And all the assistants in the libraries would tell people about which schools and all the people and you had to be accredited to get agents, decent agents. You know that from Canada. And so when English Out There was coming up, like I knew the head of the British Council accreditation testing thing, and she said, "Oh, are you going to go for accreditation?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, because I don't think you'll get it." And she said, "Oh, we will. We'll be really nice. We'll be really nice." And so I said, I gave in, and I kind of had to give in, because to get anywhere, I needed the accreditation.
Yeah.
But then they sent the two chief inspectors, these two old ladies. I don't think that's unkind. And they went through, they observed the classes they wanted to observe. They followed the students out onto the streets in London and witnessed them practicing with people, with the teacher there. They had 700 odd handwritten anonymous feedback forms that, if you did this, the maths gave us 98% approval, and massive recommendations of, yes, I'm learning to speak finally, of that kind. And then when they came down for the end of the inspection, I just sort of said, then all my staff were there, and I said, okay, let's cut to the chase, evidence of learning, because you could fail different things, but you couldn't fail evidence of learning, right? If you failed evidence of learning, you failed, right? This is night 2004. And they said, oh, yes, well, we think everyone really likes it, but we don't think they really understand what's happening, with their learning process. So no evidence of learning.
There's your fear-based culture, eh?
So,
Yep.
and my investors, my board, which included the CEO of another language company and a former merchant banker who had been a friend of mine, he's dead now. They wouldn't let me legally challenge the British Council. We had an appeal, and the appeal, I asked if I could attend the appeal, and I was denied the right to attend the appeal. Get that, right? So I think they did a job on us, because they didn't understand it, B, it was a threat. And so
every single thing they've ever done, and every book they've ever published and bought, and they just look so stupid.
Well, the thing is that, and this is why I said, my nature is that I find it really hard to compromise. So I remember before this, right? I remember thinking and talking to Georgina, my director of studies and a good friend. I said, like, should we just do some bog standard, first certificate course and some bog standard advanced course with an exam timetable and shit like that, just to get through the fucking thing, right? And she was like, yeah, we could do that. Let's do that. And there was something inside me going, no, fuck them. Like, totally self-defeating.
Are you sure you're not Irish? I have the same thing. I have the same affliction.
And so, like, bang, in both feet with a shotgun, right? and that's what happened. But if
once you know what to do, you can't do wrong anymore. You can't do it.
I couldn't go back. I couldn't
go back.
No. I agree with you both completely. You just can't go back, whatever it costs. You can't go back.
That's intellectual prostitution. To go back
It
and take
is.
money
It
for it.
is.
To know you're wrong,
Yeah.
exploit the students and feed your kids. That's your two choices. Exploit your students or feed your kids. I don't blame teachers for exploiting their students because they have to feed their kids, but it's prostitution. Just
It
to
is.
be abundantly clear. Yeah.
It's
Or if
hard.
you're dumb and you don't even know what damage you're doing to students, and that's the best place to be. And that's what the school system was designed to create, minions. Then you are the perfect teacher.
I'm very lucky because I can teach privately and teach everybody or help everybody who comes with a request. So if they want certification, I can give them that, and we do that too. But if I'm free to choose, somebody says I just need to improve my English and I really want to speak well and fluently and quickly, then I know what to do, and it's English out there every time. So I'll do whatever people ask. I help with presentations, and I always include some aspect of English out there. Very often, a lot of English is crazy. People are buying your book, Judy, now because I show them pages and I say, look, this is just the way it is. But maybe that's in another context. You know, if I'm free, completely free, then it's English out there every time.
This, I, I get it. Like we're all on the same team. I want to go back to the certification. So I travel a lot, and people say, "Oh, you're American." I look American. I'm not, but they say, "Oh, you're American. Will you help me with my English on a train or whatever?" So back in the day, and I went to school in Europe, and I've been like a lot of places. You say yes, of course you say yes, but you don't know what to tell them. How can I change their relationship to English in 20 minutes or half an hour? I can chitty chat with them. And then I want to quickly tell this story. It was a small city in Canada, in Ontario. It was Peterborough, and they'd sponsored 100 Syrian refugee families. So the hosts were empty nesters. So they were still working a bit, they were secretaries or nurses, accountants, whatever, but they had all these empty bedrooms. The kids had grown and gone. So they'd taken in whole families, and the commerce, what's that? The Board of Commerce, the whatever, called me and said, can you teach accountants and nurses to teach English in 2.5 hours? And we'll have a workshop in the morning and a workshop in the afternoon. Chamber of Commerce, the Chamber of Commerce, not school, Chamber of Commerce. Called and said, can you teach like a nurse to help somebody with their English in 2.5 hours? And I said, sure. And we did 2 workshops, and the organizers are asking them as they're leaving, can you teach English now? And they said, yeah, sure. And they could, because you teach them what they need to know. They don't need to know every single thing that I know or think I know, or every term or past perfect. Nobody needs any of that. No toddler ever needed that. And no learner ever needs to label all those bits to use English. So it helps if you have no English training. And then they also said, you should write that down. You should write that down. And I wrote the Backpacker's Guide to Teaching English. And it's mostly pictures, and it's 3 little booklets, and they're $5 each for they sell really well because people want to know how to help. People want to know how to make a difference today in 20 minutes. How do I change somebody's relationship and confidence and ability in English in 20 minutes? You go easy. Tell them the number one thing that they need to know that makes a difference, which is stress.
Are you a member of Teac?
Not anymore. and I've been kicked out of most of their groups. Like I used to be a member on, and it's my badge of honor, really, to be kicked out. Of.
Were you kicked out? Were you asked to
the
leave?
Way we teach doesn't work club. Yes, that doesn't hurt my feelings. You've been kicked out of our club. We're unfriending you. I go, it don't care.
When I see TESOL conferences and the what's the one in the UK? Oh, forget what's it?
IATEFL.
IATEFL, yeah. And they see all this stuff online, and people going, "Oh, I'm going to IATEFL, and this is this interest group and that group and this specialization and that specialization." I just look at it and go, "Oh my God, the
What is
levels
the
of
matter?
delusion going on in this place are
How
just
to
astonishing."
teach the present continuous as a game. Oh, let's go sign up to that. I'm like, are you kidding me? You go, I was so, that was in TESOL. That was in TESOL in Oregon in the States. And this was one of the topics. I'm just going, this is so sad. This has to be one of the biggest English teaching conferences in the world.
Yeah.
And that's what you're offering.
It's amazing.
You know,
It
you
just,
should be
I
ashamed of
find
yourself.
it astonishing. It's still to this day. I just look at it when I see stuff coming up online. I go, wow, people still do this. You know, it's like, but
Yeah.
there was a hilarious thing. I don't know if the video is still online. They might have taken it down. But Sugata Mitra, I don't know who invited it. This is just brilliant. You know who Sugata Mitra is, right? Caroline doesn't. Caroline, you got to look up Sugata Mitra, right? Anyway. Mitra was invited to the IATEFL conference to do the main speech, right? And he had this whole hall of English teachers and highfalutin, like all the, and he just blew the doors off with what he said, and there were absolute outrage that someone had let this guy on the stage, and he was laughing, he was smiling and saying stuff that was like needles going in eyes. It was just amazing.
I got a score of 86 on my professional speaking score. So I'm a professional speaker.
Right.
And the number one comment and I spoke at a lot of conferences, the number one comment was, we want her to be the keynote. We want her to be the plenary. Right? I was never asked again. It was the last time I was invited to speak.
Oh my God.
Disruptive.
And it's not enough. And we're the same. It's not enough to say that doesn't work. I couldn't say that doesn't work till I could authentically say that doesn't work, but this does.
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
promote everybody that I've come across who's got something that works. I promote the heck out of them.
Yeah.
You don't have to pick me, pick him, pick her, pick him.
Yeah.
Pick something that works. I promote the heck out of anything that works, but there's only a handful.
So what is it with this thing that where does it come from? I mean, I've had my experiences, you've had yours, it's like
fear. It's just fear.
You say you demonstrate the failure, and then you demonstrate something that works. Yeah. And it's like, I liken it to the Emperor's New Clothes. It's like no one can see. They don't want to see because they're all vested.
Yeah, you can't say I didn't know anymore. Now you know and you choose not to, which is a much bigger problem. It's the abhorrence of change. And yeah, but in our system, like Oxford and Cambridge and those guys, their salesmen take the purchaser out for lunch or whatever and sell their useless products, shiny pages. I think I call them just shiny pages to one single salesman. And then the classrooms the resource rooms are full of these. The dust is this thick. So just let me give credit to my ESL teacher colleagues. They don't even pick them off the shelf. There's nothing in them anyone could use. But we bought our resources, check. We've got the latest resources, check. All their little jobs are done through the bureaucracy. And then the teachers are standing there with nothing that works. And honestly, they make up their own materials all of the time.
On the hoof. Yeah. Well, they're trained to do that.
Let me give credit where credit is due, you guys. This broken system is held together by the grit and compassion of teachers.
No,
And
it is.
it's
Yeah.
time we let it go. Let it go. Just let it go. Let
Yeah,
it
but
fall
and
to the
this
ground.
might be I don't know. Like when I've employed teachers, and I've employed some teachers this summer, and Caprice runs it for me, so I don't have that much input. You know, I give an overview and, you know, guide it a little bit, but I still find it really difficult to, you know, have a teacher, and I saw this in my first school, and then kind of eradicated it in my second one, is that teachers are trained to think that they can knock up a lesson that works every bloody time, and they can't, and it doesn't work because they're just taking various bits and bobs,
Yeah.
and the way that the whole thing is structured, i.e. in terms of practice or acquisition and stuff like that, just doesn't work. So it's like I see it as this huge, like enormous waste of time and energy and effort.
Yeah.
Nothing. You know, it's like, but teachers still have this kind of, you know, I call it. It's like a piety. It's like a piety about their efficacy or their abilities,
Yeah.
that they haven't learned that what they do is pointless.
They can't process it. It's feed your children or make a difference. Choose. What are you going to choose?
Yeah,
They have no choice.
yeah,
They have no
yeah.
choice.